Call the meeting to order. First up is Fastbridge data.
So you have kind of in your, I did a clip, the front paper clip is all of the Fastbridge information. And I wanna thank Missy for coming. She's the district assessment coordinator and kind of the expert in all of this. One of the things that makes it a little bit tricky is we have a program, EduClimber, that is very interactive and works really well. But to do things for the board meeting, we have to kind of copy and paste it all into Excel, just because an EduClimber, it's all student identity, you know, so when you see, for example, the chart of below basic, proficient, advanced, you click on it, you can get that list of kids, you can get their history, you can get all kinds of things. So when it comes internally, there's a lot of work that she and Marcy Williams, our school psychologist, does, just in helping people, because you can actually get almost buried in the data and a little bit stuck, so helping people figure out what's helpful, what's not. But after we shared out our scores, there was a request to kind of dig a little deeper into 10th grade. The other piece that I had talked about is just doing, and again, this is only 1 year, and you'll see there's some cautions that we have. We now have 1 year of data where, so this is, when I look at the forward percent proficient advanced, I should have clarified on here, this is from last year. And then the Fastbridge is actually from the spring of last year. So this won't match kind of those other graphs, but it's just saying what we're doing is looking at Fastbridge as a predictor. Again, it's much shorter, it's a screener. How close is it, if you're proficient on the Fastbridge, that you would be proficient on the forward? So when you look, one of the interesting pieces that we talked about is the Aspire exam actually has 3 components. Those are English language arts, English, and reading, and there the prediction actually seemed to align the most closely with English. All of them are kind of within that 7-point range, other than the ACT, which is the one on the bottom. So if you look at that one according to Fastbridge scores, we were predicted to have either 73% proficient in ELA and 60 and a little bit in math. But our actual results, so the actual results are kind of the column on your left, were 37.7 and 32.1. So that's something we're kind of digging into. The other thing I included is, if you remember how we set those cutoffs, is looking at what the percentile score was. Once you have 3 years of data, we'll have a little bit more statistical ability to say, this is a Fastbridge score that predicts proficiency, because that'll give us enough of an N of numbers to do that with more confidence. So we don't want to do a big, any knee-jerk decisions or anything, but this is, again, something that, at least now as we look at it, we've got some ability to predict. The other thing with ACT is our students do what's called method test prep, which is later in the year, which is just a practice ACT, which does kind of predict and then gives them things to work on for when they get to the actual ACT. So that was just, like I said, that was the first that we had that data that we could even share. And then the other thing we talked about, instead of just saying who's proficient and who's not, is looking at the 4 categories. So the categories are below basic, which is blue, that's BB. The kind of orangish is basic, the gray is proficient, and the yellow is advanced. And these are percentages when you look at that. So this is 3rd grade, and again, it's not a cohort, it's just 3rd grade, fall to fall. So totally different groups of kids, but 3rd graders, and then 3rd graders for literacy, 3rd graders for math. And you'll see they're not completely out of whack. Some of them do match when we look again at our grade level comparisons on state test results. I'll just give people a minute to kind of look. So as we look at that, the other thing is just to try to make it simple, we looked at fall to fall. There's a line graph later where we'll look at spring to fall, and you'll see things do align a little bit more closely there. Any questions on that one, just as you kind of eyeball through it?
Just so I'm right? So like the fall, the third graders of the fall of 2020 to 2021,
Mhm.
those would be the same kids that are the fourth graders in the
Yes.
fall of 2021 to 2022.
Yes, so if you,
Kinda.
and that's kind of the next one is the one that says cohorts. So if you go like in your packet one deeper, so then you'll see third graders, it doesn't, it's only
Right.
third graders, cause
Yeah.
they didn't take it in second grade. But, so this is different, this one, when you look at fourth graders, and again, it's not exact, we have kids that move in and out, or might have, you know, had whatever, but just in general, these are those fourth graders as third graders in the fall literacy, and then when they're fourth grade, and the same for math, they were third graders,
Okay, so this is the same.
yes,
same
generally the
groups of
same
kids.
groups of kids,
Okay.
like paired up.
Gotcha.
So, that's why, like, two different graphs, and that's, when we look at it in that kind of way also. We wanna see how is our curriculum, for example, in second grade and third grade as kids enter those next grades. The other thing is, as we look at this, it tells us some things about summer slide, as we, analyze that type of information.
So the hope would be in the cohorts one,
Mhm.
that from left to right, that at least, at minimum, the blue would be getting smaller.
Correct, like we want less blues and more grays and yellows. And as we talked about before, you know, the cutoffs are different from one grade to the next, so that's somewhat of a factor, but we wanna account for that, because that's gonna be the expectation on the state assessment as well.
Now, would you say, looking at the cohort graphs,
Mhm.
if, and I'm kinda just concentrating on the blues,
Yep.
if your blue is, I'll say, going the wrong way,
Mhm.
would that be an indicator of potentially
It could.
taking a look at?
So, I mean, a lot of what what teachers will do with that is kind of dig deeper. So some of that is, like, did they go to summer school? Should they be in an intervention? When they look at all of the screening data, so they'll look at FastBridge plus they have other, like, classroom assessments, especially at the elementary. I don't know, Missy, do you have any other comments on that?
Yeah, and in addition to then their spring scores, we wanna look at their trend data too. Recognizing FastBridge, one test, Forward, Aspire, I mean, ACT, while we want students to give their best effort, it is just that snapshot. So the
Right.
important part is looking at it comprehensively, so comparing all the data that we have and what does that show in terms of achievement? And then how do we need to intervene or enrich depending on whatever their scores
Right.
are, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just thinking it'd be a good, in my mind, I guess, a good indicator of, well, is it just kids, is it maybe something with our, curriculum, is it, teacher needs some help, is it a group of crazy kids, you know, whatever, it's obviously, an indicator of, we need to look at that a little closer, right?
Right, and kind of universally too, in each of the subject areas, we can dig down even farther and say, okay, you know, in math, we know we need to work on fractions or algebraic equations, or what specific strands of those
Right.
overall subject areas. So like you said, if it's an issue that we're seeing with all of our students, we can adjust our instruction accordingly.
For the seventh grade math, just to comment on that too, just from a personal experience. We were told this too, when Logan was in sixth grade, we were told that when he goes from math in sixth grade to math in seventh grade, it's gonna be more challenging. And I remember when math was his top subject, and when he got into seventh grade, he struggled pretty heavily. And of course, we talked to the teacher, and they said, yeah, there's a big difference from sixth to seventh grade. Then I just come back to why, right?
Mhm.
And this data confirms that, right? So
Yeah.
it wasn't just him.
No.
Right.
And so that's something, I don't know where we sit with that, but clearly that's a fairly big gap.
Right.
Yeah, so.
And we have talked about that. Part of the reason is, there's a big jump in the standards and the expectations, so, but we know that. So
Right,
part of
right.
it is, we might have to actually go maybe above and beyond in sixth grade, we've started talking about is how, and not even just math, but even just as with the change between buildings, how do we help bridge that for students?
Right.
Because part of it is the content, part of it is the structure. I went from mostly one teacher or a couple to now I have a bunch and I gotta keep track of all my stuff and turn it in. So how do we help that? And so we've even started to talk about, you know, forever we sort of just lump 7th and 8th grade together because it's junior high, but maybe it's different in 7th grade and it's more transitional, or it's more transitional till Christmas.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we start.
And I would say based on, you know, my experience as a kid and even watching Louie go through it, I think the first month or two, when you get to 7th grade, is like, you're like, okay, there's a lot going on. And then you're very quickly hit your stride, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But this was a, you know, full year long challenge for him when it came to math.
Yes.
And I think we see that in the data too, so.
Well, and I'll show you kind of another example. So the other piece, the average score trend, so that's the one that has the line graphs on it. So what this is the average Fastbridge scores of everybody who ever took of it in that grade. And I'll make it a little bit bigger. And so remember that as you take it, in each grade, the test becomes more difficult. So as an example, like if our average score is 515 in 3rd grade and it's still 515 in 4th grade, that doesn't mean they didn't learn anything. That's,
Right,
it's a whole new
right,
content.
yep.
But if you look at this, so it tells you, this is last year, fall, winter, spring. And then this, so you'll see almost all of them drop off because now you're back to fall with a new group of kids. But, and you'll see it for 7th grade, but if you look from, so on these charts, we went fall to fall. Here, if you kind of look spring to fall, so spring 3rd graders to fall 4th graders are pretty even. The same thing when you go spring 4th graders to fall 5th graders. But back to kind of Corey's example, 7th grade, here's spring 6th graders, fall 7th graders, that kind of orangish one. So this also just gives you an idea of, we look at, instead of just fall to fall, spring to fall, as a group, where are some areas that we want to focus, and that's kind of how we try to identify those. So this one, the top one is reading, and then the second one is math, and they're pretty similar though, in as far as a trend.
Now, I'm just curious, you know, because we do 7th and 8th, right? But, you know, a lot of other schools do 6, 7, and 8. It's kind of a middle school. And it seems like that standard jumps from 6 to 7. That seems strange considering that we're kind of the oddball there, right? But the other schools do 6, 7, 8. So you'd think 5th to 6 would be the big divider
Yeah.
from a standard standpoint.
Well, and it's interesting because even in our curriculum, 6th grade, I think, has more of the CPM. It's more aligned with 7th grade than it is with 5th grade. But some of the concepts, and I think, you know, depending on just developmentally, I mean, that's when you kind of really trip into, you know, we want to really make sure, you know, we think of big ideas. Kids have a good understanding of number, sense, and fractions. Because if they have that, that can help with everything else, and if they don't have it, it's a barrier to everything else, especially once you start to get into even beginning algebraic equations. That's where some kids kind of, all of a sudden the gap gets bigger. And we've noticed some issues with that. So it is, it's interesting though.
Yeah.
And then the other piece, just to show you, we talk a lot about the state benchmarks are more rigorous than just what norm referenced ones are. So just to compare, we just picked 10th grade. This is reading, and this just has proficient and not proficient, the red and the green. The top graph is that's our state predictor cutoff. And the bottom chart is just norm reference provided by all the students that take the FAST. So you'll see, if we had that cutoff, we'd have a lot more kids proficient, but right now we don't think that's gonna be the best predictor. And then we did the same thing for math.
Yeah, I think the math one was the one that I think, well, I mean, 10th grade in general, I know you did a deeper dive, because I think those are the numbers that we all kind of looked at and
Yes.
said, okay, there's a big discrepancy on that one. And was there any more insight as to what we think happened there yet? I mean, so you've got the, you know, detailed data.
Right. I mean, some of that, they've started looking student by student, to see, kind of like Missy talked about, it's one test. So is it a student that performs really well and either just kind of blew off the test or didn't try hard, or, you know what, they're struggling across the board. And I don't know if you have any comments on that as well, but.
Yeah, there were some outliers in terms of scores not aligning with typically what you'd see in the students'
Okay.
trend data. I think probably the math is one of the best examples too, and I can't see from here, Jenny, if that's one you have pulled up. I think
It is.
So if you look at the top chart there's a bigger discrepancy, which the top chart has our state proficiency predictor. When we use FastBridge norms, that's the bottom chart, you'll notice there's not as much of a discrepancy in performance. So part of that is also FastBridge alignment with the Aspire assessment that the 10th graders take. So not only do cut scores change, but then we're noticing it might not have quite the same alignment that we'd like. So in that case, we need to then compare that to our summative assessments, do that deeper analysis, not only of student, trend data, but how are kids showing up in the classroom and responding to instruction, and make adjustments based on that too.
Right. And just to clarify, those two data set points that didn't align on this one, they did align on the other ones, right? So I mean, I understand what you're saying there is like,
Yep.
and I think that's why this one jumped out, right?
Yes.
Everybody, if that was the case across the board, it would be like, okay, we get the
Yeah.
data sets
Yes.
don't align, but,
Yes.
still wasn't the case here.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely look forward to hearing more about that, cause I mean.
And it will, it will be really interesting. You hate to have to wait that long, it's hard because you get impatient, but once we have a couple of years of trends of data, we'll have enough student data and
Right.
state test data that we can narrow that gap between even having the best cutoff.
Yeah, and I understand, I mean, I'm a data nerd too, so I get how it's very hard to draw any conclusions from two data points, right? Like it's,
Yeah.
Add a third data point, it can change the direction from here to here very quickly. So.
Right, so that's, the other piece is we wanna kinda stay the course so that we can compare year to year to year and then make decisions if we need to do some things differently.
And we're planning to do even how we're structuring FastBridge differently too. So specific
Yes.
goal setting with students on their results. Before, some students had their results shared with them, it wasn't a formalized process. So that's something that we've identified for improvement too. We wanna make sure students know the purpose of the assessment. They're involved in tracking their progress too as we use these, and now have used them for more than a year over time.
Right.
So like, for 10th graders, for example, how do you explain to them, like, you're gonna take this test, what does this mean to you?
Right. So that's what we're gonna focus on. So how does it then align with your classes? Why does it matter your effort on this test? How are we going to celebrate your achievement and also use your results to really then respond in terms of what you're getting in terms of educational services too?
What you need.
Right.
Right. That's why this is kind of the first time I've seen anything like this. And
Yes.
It's kinda, and if we can start really using the data to pinpoint what we need to work on, where we need to go, it's fantastic. That's good stuff. Awesome.
Well, and now even something like that, as we have more data points for students and families, you can track their trends for, like at an individual student level, and provide that kind of information as well. So thanks. Any other questions on FastBridge? So school finance, we just thought, because we always throw in these finance reports, and with the timing of the annual meeting, I just asked Sue if she would kind of go through some of the things that we talk about a lot, as far as our accounting, as far as packets, as far as how does the budget work in a little bit more detail, as well as our cash flow. So that's kind of the second paperclip items you have. And Sue, I'll let you
Okay,
kind of go through.
all right, well, the first item in the packet is the Wisconsin Uniform Financial Accounting Requirements. It's kind of the little cheat sheet that I put together a couple of years ago for new board members. It shows here the different funds that we have within the district from 10 up through 90. The sources are revenue accounts, objects are expense accounts, and then the functions, and they all work together to tell us where money is being spent within the school. So when you look at the reports that I give you with your packets, if there's an account number on there, you can kind of reference back to this to see where the money is being spent. The next item, I believe, was the budget summary.
Yep.
The budget summary that went to the public at the annual meeting. We, approve our budget very generally here. We don't narrow it down, to each individual function. As I mentioned in this woofer sheet, there are over 2,600 accounts that Jenny and Karita and I deal with within the school. And to approve your budget at that level would be very constricting. We approve it at the function level for expenditures and the source level for revenue, just to allow us, the ability to, see if there's something, you know, that's not going to work out right. We can make adjustments within that function or within that source without having to call a full board meeting.
Would it be a board meeting or a meeting of the electors?
It would be a board meeting. The
So-
board has to approve budget changes.
This
Yes.
that seems crazy, Sue.
Just as an example, I pulled out,
Welcome to government.
Holy Jesus.
okay, this is sideways, but when you look at, these are kind of an example of what's in your, finance report. So here, it's like Fund 10, and here's your object, this 6-digit is your functions. Sometimes there's project codes, for example, if it's federal funding. So all of these accounts on the left-hand side of the tipped paper, just so you have an idea, that's how, so these are Fund 46, Fund 50.
Like, all those individual numbers are
Yes.
different accounts, is what
Yes.
you're saying, okay.
Yes, and like, it has to do, and there's, like Sue said, with Woodford, like, there's rules on what you can code where, or when they audit it, they'll make you move it and, you know, do something different with it.
When the budget and in the fall, I have to file a budget report with the state that shows them basically this, what was approved. The end of the year, I file an annual report that goes into more detail as to where exactly the money was spent. And it has to fall within the correct categories that the state, I can't record tax money in, you know, a state source, it has to be a local source. I mean, they're very, specific about where they want things. And that's to make sure then that every school in the state is reporting things the same, the uniform accounting. So when you as a taxpayer go to the DPI site, you can look at any school district and see where they're spending the money versus where we're spending money.
So is that, so auditors, that's to confirm that you're properly doing?
Yes,
Yeah.
they double check to make sure that we have reported things in the correct accounts. That's part of their purpose of auditing.
Okay, and then, you know, they do the recommendations if there's some
Right.
inconsistencies in
Yeah.
there and
Yeah.
recommendations, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So do auditors, watch for illegal, I mean, they watch for illegal activities too, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, they do. They look for fraud and,
Look,
all of that kind of stuff,
okay.
yeah.
And they do sometimes with your federal programs, they'll call it a single audit, where I think it's happened with special ed, where if you get a certain amount, then they dig deeper in that category, whether it's special ed funding, Title I funding, whatever it might be.
If you get a certain dollar amount, and I believe right now it's $750,000 worth of federal money, which we did last year, we are right now in the middle of our single audit. So that's over and above the other audits. So they're digging into transportation, food service, and special education.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is that a specific firm that we use every year for that, or is
yes.
that?
We use Baker Tilly.
And that's the big, we get a book on
Yes,
that every
in
year.
January.
Yes, in January, they will come and do a report on how the audit went and point out any findings that they have. Typically, one of the key findings they're gonna find every year is that we don't have enough segregation of duties in the business office. but our school is too small. Chippewa Falls has that same, they get that same tick every year, so.
So how do you double check between you, Sue, and the administration and Creed? I mean, what is your typical, check, to check each other?
So Creta issues the purchase orders,
Yep.
and she matches them up with the invoices when they come in.
Okay.
I get the invoices. I double check the invoices, make sure they're coded correctly to where they are in the budget. I cut the checks. Creta does the bank statements for the student activity funds, I do the other bank statements. Jenny monitors balance sheets and expenditures, she actually approves the requisitions before anything goes out, any purchase orders go out. And then you as board members, when you're signing your name on that finance report, you're the final check that everything is correct.
We're
Well,
all
and
going to
even-
jail together.
You know, it's been a little bit more complicated with some of the COVID funding and some of that, so then what we've started to do is start just an Excel sheet between us that we share.
Mhm.
And so that they know, cause I do the grant application, here's how I coded PPE, so that we make sure it all gets coded that way, so when we do a claim, we just can pull that account and submit it for reimbursement.
So as board members, I mean, as we're watching, we're looking at the information that's provided
Mhm.
monthly, then our job is to peruse through any checks or anything that we see, anything that's has
Right.
questionable
Mhm.
stuff, that's our job to.
Yes.
And then
Yes,
as-
I give you that check listing every month,
Right.
and, it would be your job to go through and see if there's something that jumps out at you that doesn't look right, to bring it up and ask, well, what was this? And I also give you a cash flow, or I will start now, I been kind of lax the first couple of months because the budget was not set. But a cash flow report, so you can watch and see how our cash is going. And then I also do in your packet a budget to actual, so you can see at the end
That's
of
the next
each
sheet.
month what has been spent, what the fund balance is for each of the funds that we deal with.
So we always approve that at the first meeting every month. When do you typically have that packet available?
That packet is available usually the Thursday before the meeting.
Okay. Can we start getting that in a separate email? Cause I know it's part of the agenda and
Mhm.
the link. But it took me several meetings to realize, like, I clicked on it one day, like, whoa, like, this is a big amount of data.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, the only thing that has sometimes been the issue is the bank statements, sometimes we haven't gotten in time, but we can then just add that.
Right, right, cause that would be kind of a signal for me, I know, like, oh, this is something that's big enough, it warrants its own email. And I should be looking, at least giving it some perusal every month.
Sure.
Okay.
So is there anything that, you know, like right now, Sue, with your accounting and your work that you're seeing right now with our district that causes any red flags or not? No?
No, nothing.
Okay, everything you think is in order and, yeah.
Absolutely.
And this Baker Tilly auditor,
Mm-hmm.
this is the person that I came in and met with last year.
Yes.
is
Yes.
that correct?
They interview.
They all-
So
they like to-
interview
Yeah,
the
they
board
interview a
president.
board member.
Comes in, that was the first time I had to do that, and yeah.
Personnel check.
Yeah, right,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you guys pick up on that 500,000 to the Sue Shockel pencil sharpening fund.
The retirement fund.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
retirement fund.
She'll just quit coming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
retirement fund.
So the last one, and Sue kind of mentioned that, is the cash flow. And this sort of gets to the question at the annual meeting about short-term borrowing, so that's sort of the last page that looks like this. So one of the things that, and there's been every year, I think, almost legislation proposed, but never happens, to have, that we would get our state aid in 4 equal installments of 25% each. That does not happen. We actually get the largest amount, I think it's 35%, in
Yes.
July after the whole year's done. So that's the whole reason why we're trying to build fund balance, which is on here, but then that there might be a cash flow issue because we don't get just like monthly income or even regular income. So I don't know, Sue, if you wanna just kinda go through that a little bit too.
Yeah, if you look at this, there are actually 2 cash flow, statements here. One is just Fund 10, and that's where most of the expenditures are made from, is Fund 10. The other is the general fund, which is Fund 10, 27, 50, and 80. Those four accounts all come out of the same checkbook. So that is what I refer to as the general fund. And you can see by this, our revenue took a spike in September, our expenses took a spike in September, and our fund balance went down. Typically, we get our money, our tax money comes in January and February, and then again in August. Most of it comes in August. And the state aid comes in September, December, March, and then July. And most of that comes in July. So there are gaps in that time frame when, without having a sufficient fund balance to cover, that we do need to draw on the line of credit that we have at the bank. And I did have to draw on that this week, so we are now, we're flush again, but it will have to be paid back in January when our tax money comes in. So,
And it was less that we borrowed this year than last
yes,
year.
I did
Almost
bump
half.
up to 750,000, only because I don't wanna borrow a little bit now and a little bit again. I
Yes.
borrow 750 now, and then I'm confident that will get me through to January.
Okay.
So are these talking points, I mean, I don't imagine you're gonna move the system any, the way they pay out, but I mean, are these talking points to our legislators about payouts, state is?
I mean, there are, because part of the whole reason is then the state's earning interest on that money the longer that they
Oh,
hold,
sure.
you know, so
Sure.
it's who gets the benefit of that.
Right.
But like when we have meetings, that's what we talk about is, in every other industry, you have predictable income in installments that are equal interval. But it's kinda like you said, I mean, it always gets talked about. I don't know that there's ever been any
No.
momentum in it, but,
And it's also very difficult that your year starts in July, and you don't know what your money's gonna be until October.
Yeah.
right,
I
no
mean,
one else
you've
has
got
that.
4 months
Yeah,
of,
it's- Man, it's out of
it's crazy, so.
the best guess.
Well, we had a kind of rare year this year too, from a tax collection standpoint. I don't know if other towns saw this, but our town actually collected almost all of our taxes in the first half this year, which never
Really?
happens. Yeah, and that directly translates to when you get your money.
Yeah.
And so to add to the unpredictability of when you get your
Right.
tax money,
Right.
it really depends
When do
on
they
when you're
pay
gonna pay your taxes this year. You're gonna pay it all up front, you're gonna
Yep.
pay half and half. And it was really weird, like almost, I'd say 80%, and it's usually 50% do
Mhm.
that. And it was, so we
Interesting.
had a lot, even in the town, we had a lot of our money earlier this year than we normally would
I
have
think
had.
a lot of people are using their handout they got from the government.
I think some of that too,
Yeah.
but again, so like I kinda see, that, you know, I feel that same
Right.
challenge at the town that you have, where it's like, we're gonna get this tax money, but I don't know if I'm getting it in February, or if I'm getting it in August.
Mhm.
Right.
And that could be a massive swing, like it's not a little bit of money.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But these are things, you really need to keep that in front of the legislators, let them know about it, because, I mean, it's our job too to talk to them about, that's a real pain in the rear for our district.
What forces us to pay money on interest, because
Yes.
we've got the money coming, we just don't have the cash flow.
We don't have.
Right.
And that seems kinda silly, considering it happens every year.
Yeah, it's something that needs to be changed.
And as we talked about, we are building up our fund balance,
Right.
but that as well, you don't wanna just, it can kind of bite you if you dump a bunch of money in there, because then you're not gonna get aided. So
Yeah,
we
you
kind of have sort of a 5-year plan to build it, and then the goal would be within that timeframe, we
Yes.
would have enough to cover
Yep.
those fluctuations.
Yeah, it's the same thing we have the town of transportation, if you don't spend X amount of money on a rolling 3-year average, they'll start cutting your transportation.
Yes.
So much so that from a town, you have to borrow money at some point in that 3 years to get high enough to make sure you don't drive your transportation. Like, you have to borrow the money, which is hard to make your taxpayers understand, like, what do you mean you're borrowing money? Like, well, if we don't, we're gonna lose money.
Yes.
Mhm.
So any questions on any of the handouts or school finance? I know Sue, with new board members, always kind of goes through this, and we hadn't had a chance, but then we just thought it might be a good review for everybody to get a chance to kind of see it. especially connected to the annual meeting.
And if you're interested, I can print a full budget out for you, all 2,600 accounts, and you can go through and see where the money's spent, you can match it up by this sheet.
That's okay. I'm okay.
No.
Yeah.
I think just getting more familiar with the monthly stuff that comes through and start to kind of
Yeah.
highlight what we really need to pay attention to will help out as well.
Yes, and I think too, like, we put it on the consent agenda, but just to remind people, you can always remove it to ask questions about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, you know, it's just because, yes, it is basically kind of routine as far as it happens every month, but that doesn't mean that people can't pull
I
it
mean,
off.
we should be paying attention to it because what we should be looking for is like, oh, like I see we spent X on this, you know, you can get it over here for that. You know, kind of trying to find cost savings somewhere like that. But I mean, it's already being, you know, 3 people are handling it, it's being audited. So it's not, I don't think we're looking for fraud, you know, that kind of stuff. But we should be looking for like cost savings or things that we think.
Yeah, I think the more eyes on it, you know, as far as, like you said, you know, maybe ask, well, what was this exactly for?
Right.
And then, you know, not to,
Well,
Well, and sometimes it's just a curiosity.
Right,
well,
exactly, curiosity.
when someone comes to you and say, why did we get new football uniforms 3 years in a row, you'll know, no, we didn't, it
Right.
just looks that way,
Right.
we
Right.
didn't.
Right.
Right, and that's questions sometimes that some of the goofy stuff that we get out there, you know.
Mhm.
Thank you, Sue.
Yeah, thanks. So.
I don't get it.
I do, that's all you have to worry about.
So honest.
Give it time.
About 30 years later, you'll.
Rita's getting it.
Yeah,
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
not good enough. Don't get any ideas.
Okay. I guess that's it. Item 4, need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Cedric, second by Chrissy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.
Might have set a record.
Yeah.
It was less than 45 minutes.
I think so.
Thanks, guys.
It was kind of a lot of content, but.
Yeah, it was.
It's good content.